You just finished your first aid training and received your certificate and probably wondering where you can work and where you can use your certificate. Depending on the industry and classifications of hazards, from low, moderate, and high risk severity for injuries, our local government regulations help us understand how many workers one first aid attendant can look after and what type of equipment and facilities they may need. Most of our work is in ICI construction. It's industrial, commercial, and institutional, and it is considered to be high risk. Let me give you a few examples of what we need for first aid attendants if we're dealing with less than 20-minute driving time to the hospital. 1. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 1 certificate and a first aid kit in order to look after 2 to 15 workers on site. 2. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 2 certificate and access to a dressing room in order to look after 16 to 30 workers on site. 3. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 2 certificate and access to a first aid room in order to take care of 31 to 300 workers on site. 4. You would need 2 occupational first aid attendants with both of them holding level 2 certificates and access to first aid room in order to look after more than 301 person on site. All of this considered to be in-town work where you can get to the hospital in less than 20 minutes, or ambulance can come and get to the patient in less than 20 minutes. It gets interesting and a lot riskier when the hospital is more than 20 minutes away from the job site or the job site is behind train tracks. In these circumstances, you would need following. 1. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 3 certificate, access to a dressing room, access to ETV, emergency transport vehicle equipment, level 3 first aid kit in order to take care of 11 to 30 workers on site. 2. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 3 certificate, access to a first aid room, access to ETV, emergency transport vehicle equipment, and level 3 first aid kit in order to take care of 31 to 50 workers. 3. You would need an occupational first aid attendant with level 3 first aid certificate, access to industrial ambulance equipment, level 3 first aid kit in order to take care of 51 to 200 workers on site. 4. We would need 2 occupational first aid attendants, both holding level 3 first aid certificates, access to industrial ambulance equipment, level 3 first aid kits in order to take care of more than 201 workers on site. Anytime it comes to a high-risk industries and sites where patient packaging after the injuries is required and where designated emergency platforms, DP box, are being used, it is must to have a level 3 first aid certificate and attendant on site. And of course, usually workers that have level 3 first aid certificates, they acquire their CSO designation in order to prevent injuries and accidents ahead of time instead of treating them afterwards. It is our responsibility as an employer to ensure the level of first aid we need on a critical and high-risk hazard sites. Either it be less than 20 or more than 20 minutes to the nearest hospital. First aid can save lives, so make sure you have first aid coverage on site. Join us today and build your skills up with our world-class safety training.